Hello and welcome back to the WARC podcast. I'm Anna Hamill, Senior Editor at WARC. I'm back with a new episode of The Effective CMO, where we interview marketing leaders at some of the world's most interesting brands to learn more about how they implement marketing effectiveness across every part of their brief. Today, I'm talking to Tati Lindenburg. She's the Chief Brand Officer from Dirt Is Good, leading the marketing of Unilever's laundry brands, a portfolio worth €6.7 billion that covers Persil, Omo and Surf, depending on where you are in the world. This brief includes Dirt Is Good's global masterbrand, equity, design and innovation programs. Tati, welcome to the WARC podcast.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Let's get straight into it. As a marketing leader, what's your philosophy on effectiveness?
I believe that if marketing effectiveness can only happen when you are driving both growth and impact. So it must be a combination of how can you perform commercially well, but how you can also shift culture. And this is something that it's particularly relevant in Unilever. So we always try to find a balance between those two. And that's how we find the best effectiveness of our campaigns, innovations, and so on.
Love that. How do you prioritize effectiveness within the context of your wider brand strategy? And how do you communicate that across your whole business?
So we embed the idea of effectiveness from the very early on. So whenever we are crafting a new innovation or a new campaign, we always have a very clear set of KPIs. So what we want to achieve. Sometimes we also needed to find a balance to ensure that those KPIs will not constrain us. Because obviously, to be very creative, sometimes you needed to just let it all happen and then try to understand how you bring it together. But we always make sure that this set of KPIs is well established from early on.
Have you found in the past that the balance between creativity and KPIs has been a challenge within the brands that you're working on?
Always.
Really?
It's
How
not
so?
in the past, always.
How so?
To a point that sometimes what happens is I have to sell laundry detergent. It's not the easiest of the tasks, not the sexiest of the chores that you have at home. And sometimes we needed to be very product focused. And when we do so, the set of KPIs are very clear. And what happens is because we are so very clear about we wanted to achieve this penetration, this market share, I realized that is just we somehow constrain creativity because we needed to say, look, this is the briefing, but make sure that we show the product in this way. Make sure that we explain this benefit of the product. And this is where it is always a bit of a struggle on how can you create and craft campaigns that are incredibly relevant for people, but at the same time you sell it all, especially when we have what we call market making innovations. Conversely, when we do a social first campaign, the balance goes to the other direction, which is the briefings tend to be way more open. You can do much more. Sometimes you can just speak about the product in a very subtle way. However, the challenge that I have them is to be clear about what can I achieve with that. So I believe most companies face the same, but I always say that I have the more provocative social first campaigns the challenge tends to be what are the right set of KPIs, how we're going to measure and how we can prove effectiveness. On the other end of the spectrum is how can I be creative, somehow constraining creativity with the number of messages that I needed to land.
Really interesting. Can you give me a specific example of perhaps a campaign in which you've implemented that type of approach?
Yes. I launched a product last year called Wonder Wash. We've launched it now in 20 markets, but we started with the UK, so Persil Wonder Wash. And the key benefit of that product is that you can clean well and you can wash your clothes in the shortest cycle, even down to 15 minutes. However, to tell that story, initially, I clearly told the agency, look, you needed to tell people who are convinced about doing short cycles. So it was not a market development campaign as in, oh, if you're doing long, now move to short. It was the audience was composed by people who were doing short cycles, but they couldn't realize that their products were not the best for that type of cycle. So the briefing was, tell people who are doing short cycles, they are young, so they are not very involved in laundry, and they needed to understand that our product has better fragrance, leaves no residues, and by the way, they can do all of it in 15 minutes. It was nearly impossible to create a campaign that could be relevant, especially for what we call child-free urbanites. And this is when we decided it was a moment of like brilliancy from Malin-Low, UK. We decided to work with Usain Bolt and use Bolt, who is obviously the icon of speed, to just talk about fast just got better. So you were doing fast, but now it got better than before. But it doesn't happen that often. It worked.
It sounds like you found the magic balance on that one.
Yes, that one.
How do you communicate the value of the marketing investment that you're putting into your brands to your C-suite team? And what have you learned along the way of that process? Because it sounds as though you're working on finding the balance between creativity and KPIs and how to communicate that. How are you communicating that to your C-suite and your financial team?
Well, in a way that I always like to communicate the short and the long term of it. I know it's a bit an old saying, but or an old, more classic, I have to say, not old, a classic approach, but always in a way that we show the immediate impact that we could have on sales, turnover, marketing, market penetration, market share. But at the same time, I always look at what we call unmissable brand superiority or UBS scores. And the combination of both is the best approach, because we can obviously make sure that within the first 100 days, we can deliver it as per KPIs. But at the same time, we keep an eye on maybe you're not delivering this, but we are seeing the benefits longer term in terms of brand difference, brand meaningful. So it's really about showing the short and the long. That's how I've been doing. And it works, because if you're a little bit more anxious, you want short-term results, we can show quite quickly. But at the same time, you always have the ones who are more strategic and want to understand the impact of our campaigns in the longevity of the brands. So I try to always do a combination of both.
The Dirt is Good creative platform or master brand, would you describe Dirt is Good as a creative platform or a master brand?
Both. I would actually describe Dirt is Good as it started as a brand point of view and it became a market development platform.
Wow. So you're really kind of checking all of those boxes off. Either way, whatever we're calling it, it celebrated its 20-year anniversary last year. What have been the major evolutions in your approach with that over the last few years? Are your target audience changing? Are you finding new buyers? How are you building brand fame in a fragmented market? Just feels like there's a lot of change in the industry right now. How are you tackling that?
So when Dirt is Good was created, it was essentially a brand point of view. And it was a counterintuitive idea in a world that obviously all other brands were talking about not getting dirty, or they were talking about cleanliness. And suddenly we flipped the coin and we said, no, just go, you do life, we do laundry, enjoy your life, and we are going to get your laundry cleaned later. So it has been working for 20 years because I used to say that we go through eras. I always use Madonna as an example, and I've learned with time that I should use Taylor Swift.
The Eras Tour.
The Eras Tour,
right.
But Madonna invented that, or Lady Gaga. So
you heard it here, folks.
And basically what we do, we go through eras and we try to display and express the Dirt is Good idea according to what is more relevant out there. So a couple of years ago, when we noticed that sustainability was really important, the idea of collectivism and kindness, both ideas were prominent in the world coming out of COVID. We have an entire campaign talking about dirt not only being good, but being a force for good, and how through the process of getting dirty, you could actually clean up beaches, plant trees, etc. What we've been doing for the last 2 years now is a shift in our era. We are now in our play on era, which is all about resilience. So we went into the realm of sport to speak about resilience. So to be then relevant, we try to understand the zeitgeist of the world and how we can flex. It's always Dirt is Good, but how we can flex the way that we express the idea. that is more from what I would say a advertising communication perspective. And from an innovation standpoint, I have to always keep an eye on machines. So how washing machines are evolving, how dirt is evolving. So surprisingly, the most prominent type of dirt nowadays is sweat. It's no longer like visible dirt. So how machines evolve, how dirt evolves, and how fabrics evolve. So it's a combination of what all other brand has to do, which is what is out there. But then looking at our universe, I said that Dirt is Good became a market development platform because we look at this combination of dirt, fabrics, and machines and try to make sure that we can craft innovations that can suit or respond to the needs of the audiences, but pretty much based on these three elements.
It's really interesting. Shoppers around the world buy your products under the Dirt is Good banner 120 times every second. But laundry is a hugely competitive category, where functionality, as you mentioned, is often the main draw card for a lot of these types of products. How has the Dirt is Good marketing strategy helped you gain an edge within this category versus your competitors?
I think we have the freedom to speak about that in a way that competitors cannot. And at the same time, because we've been doing this consistently for 20 years, now when we create campaigns like everything should be part of the game, it becomes natural that a brand that has been talking about dirt being good for 20 years then talk about period blood stains being acceptable. And I think the consistency is what allows us to cut through in the category. Of course, it was first the novelty of the idea, but just staying true to that idea throughout time is what gave us the edge.
With such a diverse range of markets, you're working with a lot of global brands under different brand names under the Dirt is Good platform. How do you bring this story to life in ways that feel culturally relevant to the specific brands that you're working in?
A lot of co-creation with the markets. I used to say that we have our global guardrails, so which are both the aesthetics of the brand, the design of the brand, how the brand comes across from a more sensorial point of view. All of that is sacred. So our splat, for instance, which is our icon, has to be always the same. I'm the type of person who actually always checks like, oh, how is this splat? Is it okay? Not okay?
Yeah, the distinctive brand
assets have to remain the same. However, while the guardrails are the same, every single campaign has a local insight. So except for fewer campaigns which are very product-led, like the Wonder Wash that I explained, that then we are referring much more to the product than to necessarily a cultural aspect of a given market, we tended to be working in collaboration with the markets. So it's really about trying to understand the local insights. In some cases, we are lucky enough to see local insights from Brazil being also relevant in Indonesia or being also relevant in the UK. But it's a lot of co-creation with the markets, so not working in isolation.
Any specific examples of that thinking in action?
Yes. One example, we created a campaign, let me step back. We signed a partnership with Arsenal, and we wanted to have our very first campaign with them to launch new capsules, laundry capsules in the UK market. And I knew the product benefits that I needed to communicate to consumers. I also knew, and I was very clear in my briefing, that it was our chance to work with Arsenal, but I have no idea how to do it, especially in the context that you have so many brands working in the world of sport. So we needed to find a way that it would be very unique, but very relevant for UK consumers. So working in collaboration with what we call the local team, even though I'm based in the UK, but we are in different offices, so we literally say, let's go to the UK. Working in collaboration with the local team, we found out about the love. When people love Arsenal, they love not only the players, but there is a deep love for the club and the environment and North London and everything that comes with it. So based on that, we created this incredible campaign called The Autograph, in which we follow the story of a little boy who got a Arsenal jersey signed by Bukayo Saka, but then his father, of course, by accident, washes it off. And first of all, it's an incredible idea because we show Percy, in this case, as an enemy, because we wash the dirt that you don't want to wash, the autograph. We show obviously the power of our products. We insert the product very early on because that tension happens at the beginning of the story. And then this boy goes on a quest to try to find Bukayo Saka again and get a new autograph. But we realized that this insight, beyond the love for Arsenal, but the insight about how kids in particular look at their idols and the importance of having these things like an autograph or a picture. And we also saw the importance of a physical jersey in a world in which a lot of people take selfies with their idols, but that's it. You take a selfie, done, gone. And a lot of people, even we found out the insight that people said, well, I don't even know if selfies are now real or not real because you can just fake them all.
Yeah, could be AI, you never know.
Exactly, but not the autograph. It is real, it's tactile, it's sensorial. So we loved that the whole world around the autograph and the representation. So we decided to feature Bukayo Saka, honestly, for a few seconds. I remember Bukayo's agent saying, when will Bukayo play, like show his tricks? I said, never. He only goes there, signs the autograph, and that's it. But long story short, we realized that the same insight of the relevance of that jersey in a world in which everything is digitalized was important in Brazil. So we actually reproduced the same story with local nuances, but in Brazil. So instead of Bukayo Saka is Vini Jr., instead of a boy walking around in North London, we have a girl walking with her father in Rio and Niterói. But also the story, the narrative is identical because we realize this insight about the relevance of an autograph.
That's really cool. As an Arsenal fan myself, the thought of washing a Bukayo Saka autograph out of a jersey, it makes me sweat even thinking about it. I love that insight and how you've been able to translate it. So tell me a little bit more about Every Stain Should Be a Part of the Game, which is your partnership with the Arsenal women's team.
So when signing with Arsenal, I was convinced that we needed to sign with both the men and the women's team. And we did so, but our first campaign was with Bukayo Saka, and I was trying desperately to find an angle that I could bring the girls. And we were exploring different ways, and I didn't want to just feature them or one or two of them or the entire team in any campaign. I wanted a campaign that could be about being a woman. So in parallel to this wish that I had and my team also had, we were looking at the process that I explained before about that fabrics machine. And as we were looking at that, we always trying to understand how the relationship is with like different types of stains. And we found out that obviously the most frequent stain in the world after sweat is period blood. But it's a stain that around 65 to 70% of the population don't know how to wash well. I can confirm that I've only learned how to wash period stains after working Dirt is Good. I was doing it all wrong my whole life. So we knew that there was a laundry insight there. People don't know how to wash period stains. And then we overlayered that with a cultural insight, which is the fact that 6 in 10 girls fear playing due to period leaks. So they were so concerned about period leaks that they prefer to stop, for instance, playing or playing
That's
PE.
a major reason why teenage girls drop out of sports.
Precisely. So what we wanted them was to combine those two things. And then, of course, with the credibility that we have on the 20 years of Dirt is Good, to say, look, we can remove those stains. And at the heart of Dirt is Good, that is a beautiful idea of freedom. Because when you think about dirt being good and encouraging people to go outside, get stuck in, it's because you believe that you needed to have the freedom to do it. if you don't want, that's okay. If you want to stay watching Netflix, we don't judge, of course. But we wanted girls to have the freedom to choose. If they don't feel comfortable and they don't want to play while they have their period, it's okay. But we needed to make sure that if they want, they wouldn't feel embarrassed in case a period leak happens. So that was the idea. And I wanted then to combine this and with the Arsenal women's team to bring credibility to the campaign. It took a while because I presented the campaign to the Arsenal women's team. My team and I, we actually faced them all in one go, presented our initial ideas. They hated. And then I realized, okay, I was doing something wrong because I was very clear on the briefing, but I was looking at them more like a influencer that you could potentially partner with and use or buddy up to have higher reach and engagement. And then what I decided to do from that moment was shared authorship. So then I remember in this meeting, one of the players looked at me and said, it doesn't make any sense. So I looked at her and I said, okay, how would you do it? And this is when the process actually started. So it was then fully co-created with the Arsenal women's team. It was a beautiful process, painful at the beginning, but really rewarding.
That's really cool and a great time to be working with them as Champions League winners recently. Where do you see that partnership going next?
So we will do more with the women's team. I like it a lot to work with them. I think because of course, women's football is still, well, at a very, very early stage of development comparing to men. I feel that they have much more freedom and much more energy to co-create. So definitely we're going to keep working with them. And the other thing we are doing, and we just started now, it will come to public officially by summer, or late summer, is about grassroots football. So we created a campaign called Omo Varzanal Cup. It is actually a campaign about grassroots football in Brazil. If I may tell you a little bit about it.
Of course.
So we found out, again, same process of trying to look for local insights. So we found out that many teams, grassroots football teams in Brazil, name themselves after Arsenal. Of course, they don't have any official ties with the club, but they just call like Arsenal X, Arsenal Z.
I didn't know that. It's really interesting.
And they adore the club. That's why they named themselves Arsenal. And what we then decided to do is to create a tournament with 8 of those teams. And the 2 semi-finalists came to play the final at the Emirates Stadium just now in May. And we documented everything. It was a beautiful, beautiful process. We call Omo Varzanal Cup. Omo is how Péssio is named in Brazil. Várzea is the name of the field in which most grassroots football teams in Brazil play. It's called Várzea. So we do the Varzanal with Arsenal.
Oh, that's clever. I love it.
And so they came, these 2 teams, Arsenal Raiz and Arsenal Guarulhos. They came to London on the 19th of May. We then had the big final. Gilberto Silva, who is one of the Arsenal legends, and Ian Wright, they were both at the final. So they played. The winner is Arsenal Guarulhos. And we then documented everything. And in the process of doing so, we worked with one of I think it's probably the largest YouTube channel in Brazil called Conzilla. So we partnered with Conzilla. They were actually the ones who documented everything. And we're going to launch now a 6-episode doc-series at the Conzilla channel in August. So that is something new. And this also allowed us to show that based on Dirt is Good, celebrating the grit and the dirt from grassroots football, because it doesn't have the glory of Arsenal, of course, but it has this grit. And even visually speaking, it is very dirty, very full of like dust and mud.
And competition.
As well. So these are the 2 areas that we will be focusing on. I can proudly announce that we renewed the partnership with Arsenal for another 3 years. So we are going to focus on women and grassroots.
That's incredibly exciting. I can't wait to see where this goes next. That's all we have time for on the WARC podcast today. I feel like I could talk for hours about all of this. Thank you, Tati, for joining us so much for your insights and wisdom. For more fantastic interviews with marketing leaders, be sure to tap follow on the WARC podcast if you haven't already, to get every episode as soon as it's published. That's all for today. See you next time.